of band is this?
Everybody poops sometimes.
Give us this.
Wake up, sweetness.
Your first time should be more than special.
I'm in, Savannah said. Good Lord, Gemma.
When a man and a woman, in this case, really love each other, what happens is they fuck.
Ooh, hello?
Oh, dang it, I lost my fish.
This next word almost sounds like Quidditch. Quidditch milade Diana Agosiagath an Fiedian.
As much as I love fucking you, sweetness, we stared into each other's eyes whilst I moaned in ecstasy. Having consumed half of the bourbon, I keep saying bourbon. You know, every time I mess up on a word, Stunt Mama just shows up.
She had her seductive smile on her lips.
I said we couldn't have sex. I didn't say anything about everything else. Ew. Happy to help. Biatch. You are the spark of light in the vastness of my night. His note, like a finality to a beautiful, breathtaking song.
Good evening. Oh, I just realized Iron Flame is still being broadcasted. We gotta go get rid of that. Whoopsie. Yeah. Oh, my other thing isn't up. Jeez, I'm just not with it today. Where is... I should really make a command for it instead. Why is the camera not showing up? I think I know why. All right. Let's try this again. Let's go ahead and... There we go. Oh, I forgot to turn on the Christmas lights. Gosh darn it. I am just... Oh, nailing it. Hi, Kay. What am I wearing? It's an elf hat. Got the ears. I'm helping. I'm a helper. Adorable. Thank you. You're adorable. You. Ah, welcome to another Sunday. Sunday. Today was a busy day. I did a lot of assembling of stuff and things. Not at the moment, but thank you. Well, agree to disagree. I put together a new bench, some new dining room chairs. I put together some more shelving units that are going to go in different rooms. I feel like I did something else. It was just a lot of stuff, you know. Blackout, a good Sunday to you, Padre. Well, hello. First time chatter. Nice to see you. What's happening? And Mitchell's here, redeeming first place. Well done. Sneaking in there. Blackout 28. Why do I feel like I know you? Your name sounds so familiar. Where do I know you from? I can't place it. Holdra stream. Okay. That definitely could be it. Ah, Holdra. Lovely lady. Wonderful person. Well, thank you for coming in, Blackout. I hope you enjoy the chill vibes. We do have a community puzzle if you're interested in doing an online puzzle. It's a little hard to see right there, but it's Santa doing some sewing of some kind. Exclamation point puzzle will get you a link to it. And like I said, it's community based, so a bunch of people can join you, and it will never leave. Even if it's not finished when the stream's over, the puzzle will still be there. I don't take it down. So you can puzzle away to your heart's content. So yes, enjoy that if you want. Looks like you're jumping in. Fantastic. Otherwise, tonight, because it's Sunday, we like to have a chill atmosphere on Sundays. We just, we got to ease into the week, you know? We got to ease into the Monday, because Monday's coming. On a different note, I had a really cool voiceover opportunity that I did today. I auditioned and got the role to play, or not play, but be in an ad, kind of like marketing a company / their product, essentially. Well, not, I guess it's not technically the product, it's more of like how people can use their product. That would be a better description. So I got to do that, which was really great. That was fun. I've auditioned for a few other roles, so I'm waiting to hear back on those. Yeah. So we're just moving and grooving, you know? We had some friends over yesterday evening. We ate pizza and had some little snacks, and I even picked up a fruit pizza to keep with the theme. And then we watched some basketball on TV together. Unfortunately, our team lost, but not for trying. There was a lot of sweat left on the court. But it was still fun to hang out. So yeah, it's been a fun weekend. I hope all of you have had a good weekend. I hope you're ready to, well, start the work part of the week. Technically, Sunday is starting the new week, but you know what I mean. Anyway, enough jibber jabber. We didn't come here to listen to me jibber jabber. You came here to listen to me read a book, and a really good book at that. I changed the link. So if you, oh, there's that iron thing again I got to get rid of. But if you click on that link, it'll take you to the author page of the person who wrote the book we're reading right now. Song for Someone. Absolutely fantastic read so far. Absolutely fantastic. Very much enjoying it. Author has done a fantastic job of really setting a scene, developing characters, and it just reads nicely, you know? So I'm glad. I've got my tea right here. Gonna take a quick sip. See how it tastes. Oh, perfect. I added a touch more milk than usual just to smooth it out. And it's on point. It's fantastic. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, We are starting chapter 8 tonight, page 52. I also think this book won some awards, or at least one. The author told me about it, and I cannot for the life of me remember what it is. I should have asked her last time when she was here, because she could have told me, but either way, whatever. Everyone sit back, relax. We're gonna read a story. Chapter 8, Irene Adler. The boat docked at the port of Genoa on Sunday, the 24th of March. From there, I took a carriage to the Hotel Carlotta. I felt excited at the prospect of seeing my friends again and attending the opening night of Mascagni's last opera, Silvano. The following morning, before changing into a blue satin and brown cut velvet striped gown, I had an early breakfast. I made my way through the hotel lobby and at once saw my friend Sophia seated on a chaise lounge. I stared at Sophia for a moment. Such a beautiful, charming woman, dressed with simple elegance in a printed silk cream dress with a matching bonnet enhancing her slender frame. Her long, glossy black hair worn in an elaborate chignon. I'm not actually sure how to say that. When she noticed me, her beautiful face broke into a wide grin. I remembered with fondness our first encounter. Seldom do you meet a person for your first time and find them bright, sharp-witted, and singularly free from grandeur, a winning combination in any person. Such was the case when I first met Sophia at La Scala, where we shared rooms. After that, Sophia became a significant part of my life and was still, to this day, my closest confidant. We greeted each other with a warm embrace, holding on to each other tightly, produced a raised eyebrow or two from the waiters. When we finally sat, the waiter poured us a cup of fresh coffee, both of us dismissing the cream and sugar. Sophia beamed at me. "I'm so thrilled that you're here, Neen. La Scala has just not been the same without you. How are you, my love? I've been so worried about you." "I'm fine," I said. "I'm all the better for seeing you, Sophia. I am thrilled that you and Roger are engaged. Please let me see your ring." Sophia removed her glove. I took her left hand in mine, inspecting the ring. A Tiffany diamond with 3 sapphire side stones. "It's beautiful," I gasped. "Like you, my dear, you know you are a lucky girl, Sophia, and Robert is a very fortunate man." "Do you think?" "I know so. You need to keep reminding him." "How is he?" "Robert, you will be pleased to hear, is in rude health. He's looking forward to seeing you. He is also excited at the prospect of meeting up with his old roommate from university. He will be joining us for the opera and the engagement supper. I don't know much about him except that he's a doctor and has a practice in London." Sophia gave me a knowing smile. "There is, of course, someone else who has missed you almost as much as Robert and I have." I raised my eyebrows, breaking into a wide grin. "Ah, Arturo. How is he? Does he know I'm here?" "No. You asked me not to say anything. And, let me tell you, it has not been easy keeping your visit a secret." "Thank you, Sophia. I wanted to surprise him, that's all. What time is the rehearsal?" Sophia glanced up at the clock in the hotel lounge. "In 1 hour. We have enough time to finish our coffee." Before long, we were sitting snugly in our carriage, and with the crack of the coachman's whip, we set off on our journey to La Scala. 10 minutes later, the hansom arrived at the Teatro alla Scala. I disembarked from the carriage, staring up at the imposing building of the open plaza. This was a sight that never failed to impress me. I was aware that many people considered the facade of the building to be a little too underwhelming. Its arrangement of neoclassical motifs didn't quite capture the grandeur that many people associated with the Grand Opera House. The interior, however, was another matter entirely. I glanced around the main square, the Piazza del Duomo, smiling at the familiar sight of the pigeons cooing and grunting, the tourists feeding them bird food from the little bags purchased from the street vendors. I had come home. Sophia and I slipped into the side entrance. The rehearsal was about to start. We found Arturo and Rodolfo Ferrari, the guest conductor for Silvano, together in the orchestra pit in deep consultation. Arturo Toscanini was a dapper man, about 5'10", with dark brown wavy hair, little deep-set eyes, and a carefully waxed moustache. He always dressed smartly, even for informal occasions, and this morning was no exception. He wore a three-piece gray wool suit and a black bow tie. His manner was, as I remembered, quick and alert. Sophie and I listened intently as Arturo addressed the orchestra. "Right, gentlemen. I hope you all stayed in last night and practiced your parts." The orchestra nodded in agreement. "Perfetto. Then we shall begin. Let's start from the top." Arturo picked up his baton, and the rehearsal started. After a few minutes, Arturo waved his hand. "Can't you read? Mascagni score demands Conemore, yet you play like old married men. God tells me what the music sounds like, but you stand in my way. The score requires you to be in one orchestra. Play like it." Arturo waved his baton at the first cellist. "Where are you today, Henrique? Please read the music and play it precisely as the score demands. Gentlemen, I cannot think of a better way to spend a Monday evening than playing in this magnificent theater. We are all so fortunate, are we not?" The orchestra nodded again in agreement. Arturo picked up his baton again. "Right, gentlemen. Let's start again from the top." We stifled a laugh as we listened to Arturo in action. I whispered to Sophia, "God, how I have missed that man." The rest of the rehearsal appeared to go well. Arturo laid down his baton, addressing the orchestra once again. "After I die, I will be coming back to Earth as the doorkeeper of a bordello, and I won't let any of you in, especially Jean-Claude." Arturo pointed his baton at the pianist. The orchestra burst into laughter. Arturo then addressed Ferrari, a medium-built Italian in his early 30s with dark, languorous eyes. Although he wore a white open-neck shirt, black trousers, and a soft cap, he nevertheless portrayed an air of distinction. "If you want to impress the critics, my friend, then don't play too loud, too soft, too fast, or too slow," said Arturo. Ferrari nodded in agreement. "This is true." More spontaneous laughter erupted from the orchestra. This was a lovely moment, but Sophia and I were aware Arturo was renowned for his ear for orchestral detail, intensity, sonority, and his eidetic memory. Ferrari shook hands with Arturo, thanking everybody. Arturo once again addressed the orchestra. "Well done, gentlemen. You have indeed redeemed yourselves. Ferrari and I look forward to seeing you back here this evening. Don't be late. Non faire tardi. Arturo waved his baton, dismissing them. Sophia and I waited for the orchestra to disband before making our way up the steps into the theater. Still in the orchestra pit, Arturo looked up in amazement at the interruption. Running over to me, he embraced me warmly, beaming. Bentornato! We all missed you so much, especially me. He laughed, kissing me on both cheeks. I have missed everyone, I said. I have missed everything, even your pointed insults, Arturo. Arturo slid his right arm into mine and the other through Sophia's. Come, ladies, let's go in for drinks. La Scala must celebrate the long-awaited return of the iconic Irene Adler. We entered the theater bar and partook a glass of Madeira. I looked around the bar as the door opened and a tall, dark-haired man walked in. He wore a grey flannel suit and recognized the black wavy hair and the large, expressive brown eyes of Robert Moon. A tall, slim, handsome man followed behind Robert. This was Jean-Claude Pierre, La Scala's resident pianist. As elegant as ever, Jean-Claude wore a white shirt and a pearl grey suit, complementing his dark brown hair, penetrating brown eyes, and tanned complexion. I warmly embraced both men before we sat. The group conversation and indistinct chatter continued for some time. Eventually, Robert leaned towards me and whispered in my ear, My dear Nin, would you consider making a guest appearance for us this evening? One song would suffice. It has been too long. Robert gazed at me imploringly. Stop, Mama's Mama. Why did your sound not play? That's weird. Oh. I see. It disconnected me. How rude. Gotta try that again. If I can type. Here we go. Looking festive? Thank you. It's my elf hat. It's getting quite warm, though. How are you this evening? I hope you are doing well. I hope you've had a good weekend. I've had a splendid weekend myself. No complaints here whatsoever. Heating up your noggin? Yes. As only an elf hat will. This is a good opportunity to take a quick sip of tea, actually. Delicious. Yes, said in the snottiest English accent. How dare you? It's been a busy weekend. Outside lights went up today while it was 55 degrees and sunny. It's been warm here too. In the 50s also. My father-in-law was doing some work in the garage, putting up custom shelving, like higher up to store stuff. Same kind of thing that we had at the old house, but we wanted some here, so he was helping out with that. Yes, indeed. So we'll have more places to store things, because Lord knows you never have enough place to store things. Absolutely not. Anyway, it's great to see you. Thanks for coming in. Oh, let's see. Here we are. Sophia, overhearing the conversation, glared at her fiancé indignantly. Robert, please leave the poor girl alone. Nina's our guest this evening, not some impromptu performer. I'm so sorry, Robert, I said, but I don't feel up to performing in public. I'm afraid I'm a little out of touch. Arturo looked at me. Nonsense, Nin. Someone of your stature? Come on, you will be fine, and the audience will be thrilled. All right, Arturo, I said resignedly. I have no wish to argue with you. Only the one song, though, and it must be one of my choosing, something I am familiar with. Despite Sophia's protestations, Robert couldn't conceal his delight. He ordered champagne to toast my return, kissed Sophia and me on the cheek before dashing off to speak to the front of the house. Sophia confided in me that the box office had so far sold 3/4 of the available tickets for the opera. Still, Robert told her once the general public was aware of my impromptu performance, those remaining tickets would sell like hotcakes. Such was my prevalence at La Scala. I'm going to do some chores right quick. I'll be back. You get those chores. You show them who's boss. Good luck. After we finished our champagne, Jean-Claude accompanied Sophia and me to the theater for a quick run-through of the song we had performed many times together. Schubert's Der Tod und das Mädchen. I probably butchered that entire thing. Translated to Death of a Maiden. Sounds delightful. Sung in German, just singer and piano, Arturo always said it ideally suited my beautiful contralto voice. After the rehearsal, we slipped into the wardrobe department where we met Madame Emily, a small, elegant-looking woman, her large brown eyes bright behind horned-rimmed glasses. She wore a loose-fitting black silk dress, belted at the hip. She laughed with delight upon seeing me. How lovely to see you again, my dear. We are also thrilled that you are performing for us this evening. Come, let's see what we can find for you. We rifled through the racks of gowns until we all agreed on a stunning pale blue silk evening dress with a low-cut neckline. The dress was a perfect fit. Madame Emily said it complimented my figure. It's beautiful, Nin, Sophia gasped. It brings out the diva in you. I nodded to Madame Emily. This is perfect. Thank you so much. Sophia slipped back into the theater to meet up with Robert. As it was such a lovely day, I decided to walk back to the hotel to take in some fresh air. Slipping into the Galleria Vittorio Emanuele 11 shopping arcade, where I purchased a pair of silver shoes for my performance later that evening. Strolling through the arcade, I had a distinct feeling I was being watched. I could feel a presence walking closely behind me in every shop I entered, but every time I looked around, the shadow disappeared from my view. Finally, I walked briskly out of the mall, deciding to take a hansom for the remainder of my journey. I stared anxiously out of the cab window to see if it was being followed, then breathed a sigh of relief when the indistinct figure disappeared from view. Interesting. Twilight had fallen when I arrived safely back at the hotel and noticed a man walking in the opposite direction on the other side of the road. He was tall and slim, wearing an ulster and a flat cap. I watched him for a moment, walking briskly with a cane, until he turned a corner and disappeared from view. There was something vaguely familiar about the way he carried himself, his overall deportment. Then I realized with a start that he reminded me of Sherlock Holmes. Entering my hotel room, I sat on the bed, sipping from a glass of water. The boat journey had taken more out of me than I first believed. My mind was playing tricks. Adler, you are losing the plot. Why on earth would Sherlock Holmes be in Milan? I decided to take an aspirin and a much needed siesta to be refreshed for the performance later that evening. I had no way of knowing that Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson were in Milan on business. My path was destined to cross once more with the consulting detective. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of chapter 8. So she's met up with her old friend. She got her old friends, I should say, plural. She got hustled into a performance, persuaded, and now she thinks she's seeing Sherlock Holmes. And there's our author, Katie. How are you? When did you sneak in here and start listening? You didn't hear my terrible accents, did you? Although I have a feeling they might come back. This tea is just hitting the spot, I gotta tell you. Delicious. I don't know how long I'm going to be able to keep this hat on. It's lovely and festive, but certainly warm. I feel like my room camera is not quite pointed enough. Oops. Okay. There we go. That's a little better. All right. Well, I don't know about you all, but I'm eager to see what happens in Chapter 9 because Chapter 9 is not titled Irene Adler like the others. It is titled Sherlock Holmes. I'm good, thanks. Sorry I'm late to the party. I had trouble logging on. Love the French accent. Thanks, Oh, it just doubled itself. No worries. See, that's why it was terrible, because I was trying to give it more of an Italian spin. Italiano. See, I told you it was terrible. Okay, yeah, this has got to come off. Oh. Whew. Wow, that feels so much better. I mean, it's lovely, though. It's got these little bells. Probably can't really hear that, though. The ears. We'll just put you over there. Cute hat. Thank you. Just trying to get in the spirit of things, you know? All right. Oh, you heard it jingling? Oh, good. I wasn't sure if that would actually make its way through the microphone. Fantastico. Mamma mia. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, Chapter 9 awaits us. Doing excellent with the puzzle there, by the way. Good job, Blackout. Keep going. Page 59. Watson and I arrived in Milan on... Milan? Come on now. We can do better than that. Watson and I arrived in Milan on Sunday afternoon, the 24th of March, as I was expected to attend the court of Milan the following morning to give evidence at the Rossini trial at the Polizia di Stato's request, most notably my old acquaintance, Inspector Romano. Watson had agreed to accompany me upon discovering his old roommate from university days, Robert Moon, had become engaged to Miss Sophia Stefanato, a talented soprano. A talented soprano mezzo by all accounts. On Tuesday evening, there would be a celebration dinner to mark the occasion, to which Watson and a guest had been cordially invited. I have never been much of a fan of social events, finding the banter on such occasions pointless and irrelevant. However, as Watson had kindly agreed to accompany me to Milan, I could hardly decline the invitation. I hoped it wasn't going to be one of those dreadful, tedious affairs, plunging new depths of banality. When Watson pointed out that Moon was the music director at La Scala and, as a special consideration, had reserved tickets for us in a private box for Pietro Mascagni, I can speak, latest opera, I gladly fell in with Watson's plans. Indeed, I told Watson I was very much looking forward to it. An hour before the performance, a carriage came to collect us from our hotel, the Guella. Guilia? I don't know how to pronounce any of this stuff. I am sucking. But we'll get there. Watson and I arrived at La Scala at precisely 7 o'clock, both suitably dressed for the occasion in black tailcoats, cummerbunds, white shirts, black ties, and top hats. We were greeted effusively at the main entrance by Watson's friend Robert Moon, an agreeable young man, before being ushered on a private tour of the theatre and the Museo Trattel alla Scala. Trattelli? Museo Trattelli? Something like that. Containing a collection of paintings, drafts, statues, costumes, and opera history. Katie, you're probably chuckling to yourself right now as I butcher all these words. Our excursion culminated with complimentary drinks in the green room. After escorting us to our private box, Moon handed us a program. "We hope you enjoy the opera, gentlemen," said Moon. "We shall look forward to seeing you in the green room for refreshments." Then Moon dashed off to consult with Toscanini Rodolfo and the Teatro alla Scala, giving Watson and me no time to ask the identity of the guest performer. Ferrari picked up his baton. Adele Stell stepped onto the stage to perform Mathilde's opening aria. The first act of Silvano had begun. Watson glanced over to me, nodding his approval. He seemed pleased to find me, his friend, in such an agreeable mood. My smiling face and impassive eyes no doubt sharply contrasting with Holmes, the all-knowing detective. At the end of the 2-act opera, Toscanini appeared on the main stage, immaculately dressed in a three-piece black suit with a black bow tie. "Ladies and gentlemen, we hope you enjoyed the opera this evening. We now have a little treat for you. It is my absolute pleasure to introduce to you a good friend of La Scala, performing the difficult piece, Franz Schubert's De Tod und das Märchen, accompanied by our resident pianist, the prodigiously talented Jean-Claude Pierre. Ladies and gentlemen, please show your appreciation and welcome to the stage the estimable Miss Irene Adler." Perfecto. Don't lie to me. Sometimes if I say it fast enough and with enough of an accent, you can't tell if I said it wrong. Hydrate? Okay. How'd you know I like my tea so much? Mad Locust, what's up? Good to see you. Ready for that bedtime story? You have come to the right place, my friend. Yes, excellent. Well, without further ado, I was astounded as Irene Adler glided onto the stage. Resplendent, oozing elegance to whistles and cheers. She smiled at the audience, gave the pianist a silent nod, and the piece began. Watson and I looked at each other in astonishment. We'd read in the papers that the train carrying Miss Adler and her husband to the continent 7 years earlier had crashed outside Paris, killing everyone on board. Watson was saddened to hear of her demise, although I had my reservations. Still, it was pleasing to know she was still alive. Then, finally, I contorted my face into a comical but good-natured expression and said quietly, "Watson, this is quite an extraordinary event." Halfway through the piece, Watson glanced over at me to see my head swaying unashamedly to the music. There was even a tear in my eye as Irene Adler utterly commanded the stage. Her power and vulnerability splendidly entwined as she reached the third and thrilling finale of Death's Song in D major. I continued to stare in awe at the bold, quick-witted, and intriguing American. She was different from any woman I had met before, free from the old world of stuffy Victorian conventions, and therefore able to set unconventional standards, something I had always admired about her. Staring at her graceful form on the stage, I took in the glossy dark auburn hair, the smoldering violet eyes, the lightly made-up face. The end of the song drew a thunderous reaction from the audience, who shot to their feet. Irene Adler looked up anxiously at the Logione, but there was no need for concern. They were roaring in delight at her chilling performance. She beamed at them and said, "Thank you. I felt it too." She spoke in a New Jersey accent. "Thank you. I felt it too." Which was, I remembered, unmistakable, well modulated, and pleasing to the ear. That's actually quite funny. Side note. Accents are interesting things. And there's something about that East Coast. Hey, I'm from Jersey. That's just kind of different from all the other ones. It's so interesting. I mean, I realize they're all different, but the Jersey one just kind of stands out more. And this whole time, I've been giving Irene Adler more of a British accent, but really, should have been doing this. Oh well. You love the New Jersey accent? Now don't forget to park your car, all right? Close the drawer. The accent had a profound effect upon me, quickening my pulse, and I could feel heat rise to my cheeks. Waves of love flooded in from across the crowd, along with cheering, whistling, and several bravos. Toscanini walked onto the stage to present Miss Adler with a large bouquet. She kissed him on both cheeks, taking a bow before leaving the auditorium. She returned for a final curtain call a few minutes later, receiving a standing ovation, more chanting and clapping. Well, how about that? They love me. They really love me. Watson and I were amongst the many guests enjoying refreshments and hospitality in the green room. Watson conversed with Moon while I was on the opposite side of the room with Moscagnini and Toscanini. Moscagni and Toscanini. I'm going to get these names right at some point. I shook hands with Moscagni, a well-built Italian in his early 30s, with deep-set brown eyes and a shock of wavy black hair. "I have always held your work in high regard," I said. "I must say, I found your latest opera to be a rather technical accomplishment after your earlier success with Cavalleria Rusticana. Okay, I'm back. Welcome back, Mama House Gaming. That is quite the compliment, Mr. Holmes. Thank you, said Muscogny. I swear I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna get it. You are right, of course. Silvano has been a challenge. Oh wait, that's You are right, of course. Silvano has been a challenge. Although I fear we may have been upstaged this evening by Miss Adler's spectacular performance. Words are hard. Words are always hard. Muscogny chuckled, gesturing to a young lady standing beside him. Mr. Holmes, please allow me to introduce you to my wife and manager, Lena. I bowed and shook hands with Lena Muscogny, a petite, dark-haired young lady with an engaging manner. We spoke until Muscogny and his wife apologized. Their carriage awaited to take them back to their hotel to attend a celebration dinner. After bidding them good night, Toscanini and I continued our conversation. Well, Toscanini, pray tell me, what were your thoughts of the opera? I asked. I must say I rather enjoyed it, Mr. Holmes. But for me, Silvano just lacks the fast-moving thrills and spills of Rusticana, although I freely admit there is merit in its music. Yes, I agree with you, I replied. Although I will say this for Muscogny, this music is never overly worried or prepared. I find that rather refreshing. Finally, I offered Toscanini a cigarette. He politely declined, pointing to his glass. I have only one bad habit, Mr. Holmes. Well, maybe two. I smoked my first cigarette and had my first kiss on this same day. Ever since then, I have wasted no more time on tobacco. I threw back my head and laughed. Toscanini stared at me curiously. I could also read. Tell me, Mr. Holmes, your thoughts on Miss Adler's performance this evening. I waited for the length of a breath before replying. I thoroughly enjoyed Miss Adler's spectacular performance. I met the young lady several years ago in London, albeit ambiguously, although I was not even aware of the full extent of her extraordinary talent. She is indeed magnificent, agreed Toscanini. Irene's dedication to her craft is remarkable. When that young lady is on the stage, it is almost impossible to look at anyone else. Irene is an old friend of mine, although there was never any romance between us. We know each other too well. He chuckled. We were, of course, both extremely proud and privileged to be chosen to perform in the world premiere of Giuseppe's Verdi's Otello, which the great man conducted himself, here in this very theater. I played the second cello at the time Irene joined the chorus. After our first performance, I was thrilled beyond words when Verdi asked to meet the man who played the second cello. They were good days, Mr. Holmes. I turned around at the unexpected mention of my name from another quarter, stunned to discover Irene Adler, dressed in a gown of gold and cream colors, in deep conversation with Watson and Moon. Breaking off in mid-conversation with Toscanini, I strolled over to them. A quick blush passed across Irene Adler's face as I cast my eye over her. Good evening, Miss Adler. I extended my hand and smiled at her warmly. It is indeed a pleasure and an honor to meet you again. I was aware I was standing in front of one of the finest contraltos, a prestigious talent. Without any warning, Miss Adler appeared to experience a syncope. Syncope? Syncope? Sin something. It's just a terrible sin. Her eyes glazed over, her whole body swayed as though she would faint. Then, with a valiant effort, she managed to steady herself. Watson quickly found a chair. Irene Adler sat, her gloved hands folded on her lap. Watson offered smelling salts and a glass of water, while I ordered the waiter to bring a dash of brandy. After a few moments, Miss Adler had recovered. She looked up at me, and I laid a glass of brandy within her reach. Pray, do keep up your strength with this little reviver. I don't usually have this effect on young ladies, I can assure you. Toscanini and Moon rushed over to Miss Adler. She told them all was well and not to fuss. She was just a little overwrought from the long journey, although I suspected it had something to do with seeing me alive after all these years. Then, the strangest thing happened. She regained her composure, took a sip from her glass before standing up and extending her hand to Watson. It's a pleasure to make your acquaintance, Dr. Watson. Rexter! What's up, man? How you doing, sir? Likewise, Miss Adler. And I must say your performance this evening was transcendent. Thank you, Dr. Watson. I'm very flattered. I appreciate your comments. She turned her attention back to me, fixing me with those wonderful eyes as though looking into my very soul. You had me at quite a disadvantage, Mr. Holmes. You've already met me twice, while I have merely been introduced to your alter egos. I feel honored that you remember me, Miss Adler. You're rather hard to forget, Mr. Holmes. Ah, yes. The scandal in Bohemia. Well, that was quite some time ago. I long ago deduced you were the injured party in the matter. Please let me assure you that there will be no repercussions from me or anyone else. As far as I'm concerned, the case is closed. Ancient history. Thank you, Mr. Holmes. I appreciate your candor. She smiled at me. I'm afraid Mascagni and his entourage have already left for the evening. A prior engagement, apparently, I said. Well, that's a shame, she replied. Although I must say that, given a choice, I much prefer dealing with dead composers than detectives. One does not tend to run into them at functions. I chuckled as my gaze darted around the green room. Is Mr. Norton not with you this evening? I asked, staring at the third finger of her left hand, which was ringless. She shook her head. I'm afraid that my husband is no longer with us, Mr. Holmes. Godfrey was murdered in London nearly 2 years ago. The police identified the perpetrator as William Palmer, but despite my husband's employers putting up a substantial reward, he has yet to be apprehended. Ah, Wild Bill, I muttered before composing myself. Please accept my sincere condolences for your loss, Miss Adler. I read about the case in the papers, although I was abroad at the time. I noticed that the police identified the deceased as Godfrey Jones. I looked at her questioningly. I had a good one, by the way. I just woke up from 11 p.m. yesterday till 5 p.m. today. Good Lord. You must have been working 9 to 5 and then a few extra. That's nuts. I'm glad to hear you're feeling good. She nodded. That's because we changed our surname by deed poll very quietly and without any fuss before returning from the continent. We didn't want anyone to become curious about us. We needed to avoid any unnecessary attention from the King of Bohemia and, of course, from yourself, Mr. Holmes. However, at the time, we were under the misconception that you had passed away. I have to say, you look pretty good for a dead man. She flashed me a coy smile. I'm sorry you had such a fruitless journey when you came to my house to recover the photograph of Ormstein and me, but I am pleased you like the alternative. I stared at her in disbelief. How could you have known? My good friend, Sarah Burton. She's an accomplished actress. You may have heard of her. She posed as my maid and told me everything that transpired. Everything? Yes, everything, Mr. Holmes. She laughed. Ah, of course. Now it all makes sense. The maid who told me you left for the continent at 5:15 from Charing Cross. Yes, I'm sorry about that, but I had to find a way to put you and Ormston off the scent. Instead, Godfrey and I traveled the following day using fake identities. And after hearing what happened to those poor people, I'm glad we did. I understand your position, I said. Tell me, what brings you back to Milan? I returned to the States with my father shortly after Godfrey's death. There was nothing to keep me in London. After a while, I became restless and decided to travel to Europe. Milan was first on my list as it holds so many happy memories. It was also good to reconnect with my old friends. Lulu. Hi there. How the heck are you? We haven't done any shout-outs yet. So I'm going to do some. I'm doing one from Mama House Gaming
You know what we
because...
did today when you hopped off? You hopped off and we went straight to Doug's.
Oh god.
Mm,
Guys,
Doug's.
the duck fascination game.
Yep. Straight to Ducks. Mama House Gaming, could you please kindly give Sweet Lulu a shout out? That would be lovely. And Rexter, of course. We'll get him back onto the stream one of these days. When he's not working 20 hours a day.
Yeah, I bet. Oh, doggy! Hi, doggy! Hi, doggy! Hi, doggy! Hi, doggy!
Distracted.
Dog! That was a really good English. Dog. Dog.
Well, gosh, if that wasn't a random clip. Ah, would you believe it? I lost my place. I should have a command for that. A counter for every time I lose my freaking place. Oh, never mind. I found it. Thank you, Mama House Gaming, for doing those shoutouts. I missed what you said in reply, though. I'm good. How are you? I am doing great. Thank you. Doing wonderful. Put a lot of furniture together today. Did a voice acting job. Went out to dinner. Yeah. Had a good day. Now we're reading a really good book. So nothing to complain about here. It was busy. It was definitely busy. But it was all good busy, you know? All good stuff. All good, you know? Oh boy. Let's see. I didn't realize your occupation involved such extensive travel, Mr. Holmes. You got engaged? Wait. Hold up. I thought you were already married. Well, I was way off then. Well, congratulations. Is it to the guy that lives with you? Just teasing. Because that would be really awkward. Well, that's awesome. I'm really happy for you. That's very cool. It's going to be great. It's going to be great. That's going to be so good. We have an ad starting in like 20 seconds. So we're just going to run it. I won't read anything. I will not read anything. We're just going to let the ad go. And then we'll get back to the book because it's going to start in like 5 seconds. No, don't be sorry at all. This is great news. And there goes the ad. Or it says it's about to start. I don't really understand Twitch's ads. Like how it all kind of works or doesn't work. It gives me this countdown of like, okay, it's starting in 3, 2, 1, and then it says ad starting soon. Like, pick one. Is it starting or is it not? It's very confusing. Just sit and stare intensely at the camera for 2 minutes. Well, there you go. Oh, now the ad started. Good grief. Bookfather Hubba Hubba? Whatever. When's your road trip starting, Rexter? Come on. Stop keeping me in wait. Guessing you don't have any ads right now. It says they're going, but heck if I know. Nope. Okay. Well, I can't really tell. Like, it depends where you are in the world, for one thing. I think it depends on the day and the time. So I never actually know if ads play for certain people or not. It makes 0 sense. I might postpone it because of work. Rexter! That's the whole reason to get away, man. Work will be there when you get back. Ads do play for us. Okay. Well, there's only like 20-ish seconds left, so. And then we'll keep going. I better figure out where I was in the story. Okay, we're like at the bottom of page 66. EU countries don't get American ads because of weird rules, maybe? Yeah, could be. All right, ad break ended. Mama House Gaming wants me to read the book in a pissed off tone. Okay. This should be interesting. I know, but not for long. I thought about it and I'm going to do it in the dead season, end of Jan or mid-February. Just keep in mind the Midwest is a terrible place to try and travel when it's snowing and icy. Not impossible, just not great. All right. Crime and punishment are symptomatic of our time. My life is usually preoccupied with one or other. I smiled at her. I'm a bear. Okay. Watson and I decided to stay on for a few more days, and I'm so glad we did. I glanced around the room. This beautiful, theaters where my musical idol Paganini made his debut. Then, of course, your impromptu performance this evening, which I must say was indeed a welcome distraction. You have quite a talent, Miss Adler. Thank you, Mr. Holmes. You're very kind. I've been in conversation with your good friend Toscanini. He has a very high opinion of your talent, and rightly so. Boy, it really changes the tone of the story when I have to do it like that, doesn't it? That's funny. Right. Dear Arturo, he is indeed a good friend and generous in his comments. He's quite simply a genius, and well known for his eidetic memory, not unlike myself, or yourself, Mr. Holmes. Did you know that before joining La Scala, Arturo was touring South America with an opera company as a chorus master? The singers were not happy with the conductor and went on strike. The musicians eventually persuaded Arturo to take up the baton. He conducted a 2.5-hour opera from memory, although he was only 19 at the time. I'm afraid that my talent pales into insignificance compared to his. Well, yes, he is indeed a remarkable man, I said. But please don't diminish your exceptional accomplishments, Miss Adler. You do yourself a terrible disservice. My accomplishments may be far less than you imagine, Mr. Holmes. However, I have been extremely fortunate in my career. She flashed a wiry smile. I fear you gravely underestimate your achievements, Miss Adler. I had deduced that you are a musician. There is quite a humility about your face which bears all the characteristics of one who plays the piano. Your smooth, elegant hands, the long, delicate fingers. She looked at me curiously, arching an eyebrow. Tell me, Mr. Holmes, you intrigue me. Is there anything else you've noticed about me? I can see that you have lost weight since our last encounter. She stared at me in disbelief. Other than what you had already told me, I know very little about you apart from the fact that you are the only woman who's ever outwitted me. Well, I can't argue with that. That was such a long time ago, Mr. Holmes. I must say that the acoustics in this theater are excellent, I said. I much prefer German music to French or Italian. I find it introspective, and I have a particular penchant for Wagner. Wagner? She laughed, shaking her head. Another Wilhelm, and yet another terrible man. As for Paganini, the celebrated virtuoso, you're right, of course. The great man did make his debut here in November 1813. That appearance was said to have launched Paganini's career. He never looked back afterwards. He was from Genoa, if my memory serves me correctly. He was, I said, impressed with her knowledge. You know, Miss Adler, mediocrity knows nothing higher than itself when prodigious talent like yours and your friend Toscanini instantly recognize genius. Well, thank you. She flashed me an enigmatic smile. I will take that as a compliment. Tell me, do you and Dr. Watson plan to attend Robert and Sophia's engagement dinner tomorrow evening? Sophia is one of my oldest and dearest friends. Yes, indeed, I replied. We have it on good authority that the drinks and company will be exemplary, and of that I have no doubts. Splendid, said Miss Adler. You really must forgive me now, Mr. Holmes. I'm fatigued from my long journey and the excitement of the evening. I must return to my hotel and prepare myself for tomorrow evening. Yes, of course. Please allow me to escort you to your carriage. That is very gracious of you. Miss Adler bade her friends a good evening, allowing me to escort her into the foyer, where I beckoned for the porter to send for a carriage. After a few minutes, the carriage arrived. I unfastened the half door. "Allow me," I said, helping Miss Adler inside. "You know, you really should reconsider Wagner. He represents the all-important things." "I will give it some consideration, Mr. Holmes. I have Ashkenazi Jewish ancestry on my paternal side. Wagner was, after all, an anti-Semite, although I must say the Lohengrin is one of my favorite operas." I nodded, gazing at her intently. "Watson and I very much look forward to seeing you tomorrow evening. I do believe that our time in Milan has invigorated Watson. He is a widower, you know. His wife Mary died only last year." "I'm sorry to hear that, Mr. Holmes. I know from personal experience that to lose someone you love is the worst pain." I nodded, pausing as though deep in thought, her eyes transfixing me with their searching glance. "I am a bachelor, just in case you were wondering." "I wasn't, Mr. Holmes, but thank you for enlightening me. I am undoubtedly better informed." Oh, that's funny. I stared at her with amused surprise. "Just before you entered the green room this evening, your friend Toscanini was speaking to me of your speciality in opera. Sadly, we never got a chance to finish the conversation. But pray, humor an old man as you fill me with curiosity. What is it?" "My speciality is Wagner, Mr. Holmes." I stared at her, astounded. She met my gaze. "According to Arturo Toscanini, I am an admirable interpreter of Wagnerian roles." She laughed. "Just because I don't admire Wagner as a person doesn't mean I cannot appreciate his music. Wagner had talent, all right. He was never afraid to celebrate innate creativity. But being blessed with a prestigious talent like Wagner is a rare thing indeed, one that does not discriminate. You cannot own it or buy it. It is a God-given gift." I nodded. "I will bid you a good night then, Miss Adler. May I say it's been a pleasure to meet you again." "Likewise, Mr. Holmes. I shall look forward to seeing you and Dr. Watson tomorrow evening." She drew up her kid-gloved hands, waving to me out of the cab window. I waved an arm in salutation, watching as the coachman brought down the reins on the horse's flanks and the carriage slowly moved away before disappearing from view. There was a spring in my step as I entered the busy throng of the green room, where Watson awaited me with a welcome glass of champagne. The following morning, Watson and I breakfasted at our hotel. First, I ordered fresh rashers with eggs, coffee, and toast. Then I picked up the open newspaper from the table and cast my eye over it. First, there was a small review of Silvano within the inner pages of the publication. Then, under a series of flaming headlines, the newspaper displayed a picture and critique of Irene Adler's performance. I smiled in amusement, taking a theatrical relish in reading it out to Watson. Irene Adler remains as ever the most talented contralto of her generation. We marvel at the expressive range of her voice and the emotional intelligence and power of her interpretation. I tossed the paper over to Watson, who scanned the review with a dry chuckle. "Well, Miss Adler has undoubtedly made quite an impression. But good God, Holmes, I didn't realize until last night just how damn talented she was." I wonder if she intends to stay on in Milan. The Scala would be mad to let go of such a prize. From what the young lady told me last night, I believe she intends to travel around Europe before making a definitive decision regarding her future. But you will be able to ask her yourself this evening, Watson. You must be aware that she is a good friend of Miss Stephanotis, as they shared rooms years ago, not unlike you and Moon. Indeed, Holmes. Come to think of it, Moon did mention something last night I'd forgotten with all the excitement. What a small world we live in. I chuckled as I poured us out a cup of coffee. Eat a hearty breakfast, Watson. It would appear we're going to have quite a day ahead of us. And that was Chapter 9. My dear boy. Watson, my good man. Who here has seen the Sherlock Holmes movies, but then also the Benedict Cumberbatch Sherlock Holmes series that aired on Netflix? I have watched them all a couple of times and loved it. I've always been infatuated with Sherlock Holmes based things. There was even the other couple of movies with, what's her face? I can't remember now. I forget her name. I've seen them all. My favorite Holmes is Basil Rathbone. Why am I not remembering that one? Anyway. There's a different kind of movie where it focuses on Holmes' sister. She's the main actress in Stranger Things. Gosh, what? There's 2 movies. Enola Holmes, that's right. Thank you. The Hound of Bakersville, circa 1949. Okay. Millie Bobby Brown, that's right. Thank you. That was also pretty good. I really enjoyed those 2 movies. Definitely recommend. That tea is just divine. Although I did like the take of Benedict Cumberbatch as well. Yeah, I thought he did a pretty good job of kind of that modern day Sherlock Holmes. It was pretty good. I like that he didn't try to be, 1800, 1900 version of Sherlock Holmes. He kind of gave it his own, Now you're just teasing about what? The tea? I can't help if I make a good cup of tea. It's not my fault. Okay, it is my fault, but you know what I mean. All right. Shall we endure another chapter of this fine reading? Although I feel like I have to look up Basil. I lied about the first series, but felt it lost its way in the second part. The Irene Adler episode was ridiculous. Yeah, it's definitely a different twist. Oh, that guy. Okay. I just looked him up. I don't think I've seen his, actually. Huh. Got it. Well, there you go. Now I know. All right, chapter 10. Oh, and let me post the link again, just in case anyone has not seen it. I changed it from song, so that way we didn't get that extra message that was not helpful. Okay. Chapter 10. Irene Adler. Later the following evening, a soiree of guests attended the Hotel Victory, where a drinks reception was underway in the large reception hallway. An orchestra played music taken from Mozart's most significant works. Holmes handed me a flute of champagne off the tray of a passing waiter. I had observed the seating plan and must say that it is indeed an honor to be sat next to you at dinner. I hope that does not prove too tedious for you, Miss Adler. She was never the swashbuckling dominatrix as portrayed in the series. In Doyle's novel, she has described Watson as a lovely woman. Yeah, it was definitely a twist. I think they took the lovely part a little bit left field. Yeah. But I enjoyed it as a entertainment show overall. Sometimes you have to take the characters at a grain of salt just because it's a new season, new era, new time frame. In the way that Benedict Cumberbatch gave Sherlock Holmes a different perspective, perhaps they gave Irene Adler a new version of, current times, so to speak. I never critique shows, otherwise they lose their fun and entertainment value. Yeah, I can understand that. I mean, sometimes though, for some people there's a line and you have to draw it there for them, but I understand what you're saying. I try not to get too involved in the ups and downs of a show and how it's set up and stuff like that, but to each their own. It was very popular. Una Stubbs was wonderful as Martha Hudson. She was. Miss Hudson, really? Right. Not at all, Mr. Holmes. On the contrary, I found your conversation to be most entertaining so far. Holmes' gaze darted around the room, which was filling up with guests in formal evening wear. I am hardly a fan of such occasions, but I believe we ought to be in stellar company this evening. The best part was her scream, and the camera went all down to her oval. Now I want to watch the show again. I hope you don't feel too awkward, Mr. Holmes. I'm far too successful to feel awkward. We entered the dining room, taking our seats. Candle-lit tables adorned the room, covered with crisp white tablecloths glistening under ornate chandeliers. Each place had a card bearing the guest's name, a menu printed in Italian that was decorated with silver vignettes, and a glass of Salento wine as an aperitif. Robert Moon's mother, Christine, sat between Sophia and me, a slim, diminutive woman. Her pink-flushed cheeks were tinged with rouge, and her dark brown hair sprinkled gray fell in light curls on either cheek. Miss Adler, please forgive me for interrupting your conversation with Sophia, but I wonder if you would be kind enough to escort me to the powder room? I'm a little unsteady on my feet these days. She gestured to her cane. One of the many pitfalls of old age, I'm afraid. I smiled at her. Yes, of course. Sophia and I will be happy to accompany you. Sophie and I escorted Christine to the restroom. On the way back to the table, Christine stopped for a moment, placing her hand on my sleeve. Miss Adler, I hope you don't find me too impertinent, but I wonder if you'd be kind enough to humor an older woman and allow me to switch seats. Also, I would love the opportunity to speak confidentially to Mr. Holmes. I am such an ardent admirer of his work. I have read all of Dr. Watson's chronicles. I hope you don't find that too much of an imposition. Yes, of course. I did not realize you were such a fan. I'm sure Mr. Holmes will raise no objections. In fact, that will allow me to speak to Sophia more freely. Thank you, Miss Adler, said Christine Moon, her face breaking into a wide grin. You have made an old woman very happy. We returned to the dining table. The swap appeared to have gone unnoticed. Holmes was in deep conversation with Dr. Watson and Arturo as the waiters cleared away the main course. The wine glasses were refilled with Chianti by the sommelier. Arturo, fortified with wine, was in full flow, entertaining Watson and Holmes. I could not resist eavesdropping on their conversation as Arturo narrated his favorite anecdote. I almost said antidote. That is something else entirely. After conducting a concert in a small town, I once received the following note from a farmer who attended the performance. Dear sir, I wish to inform you that the man who played the long thing he pulled in and out only did so during brief periods when you were looking at him. Watson and Holmes roared with laughter. Watson refilled Arturo's glass. My wife Mary was quite a fan of the waltz king, Johann Strauss. The Blue Danube was her personal favorite. That song brought out the romantic in her. Yes, indeed, Dr. Watson, said Arturo. Did you know that Strauss was inspired to write the waltz after reading the poem Beck by Carl Isidor? Each stanza of that poem ends with the line, by the Danube, beautiful blue Danube. I know little about the romantic waltz, said Holmes, but I am familiar with the poem, although one could hardly describe the Danube as blue. In astonishment, Watson stared at Holmes and Arturo, shaking his head in good humor. Arturo held up his glass. Gentlemen, to Strauss the composer, I take off my hat. To Strauss the man, I put it back on again. They laughed. I have always had a great appreciation for the German composers, Beethoven and Wagner in particular, said Holmes. Gentlemen, interrupted Arturo, I believe the first movement of Beethoven's third, the great Eroica Symphony, to be one of the most critical milestones in classical music. Yes, I agree, said Holmes. That was indeed Beethoven's magnum opus. Did you know, Mr. Holmes, that the Eroica Symphony was originally a tribute to Napoleon? Arturo once again raised his glass. So to some it is Napoleon. To some it's Alexander the Great, while to others it is a philosophical struggle. To me, it is always Allegro con brio. The men raised their glasses. A toast to Allegro con brio. Beethoven was fascinated by Napoleon, Arturo rejoined. He considered himself his musical equal. They were, of course, both geniuses of their time. Beethoven intended to dedicate the Eroica to Napoleon, but when Napoleon crowned himself emperor, Beethoven tore up the dedication page. Then he changed his mind, declaring, now he will trample on all the rights of man. Napoleon was indeed a great leader, Holmes agreed. He made a significant impact on the course of history with his uncanny knack for evaluating his enemies and finding the best way to defeat them. He would have made a remarkable detective. Napoleon said, "There are two powers in the world, the sword and the mind. In the long run, the sword is always beaten by the mind." I feel quite an infinity with both men. I understand Beethoven remained a bachelor all of his life. Yes, Holmes, I quite see the similarities, said Watson. Beethoven may never have married, but he enjoyed women's company, said Arturo. He had a penchant for married women. But sadly, the maestro was unlucky in love, forcing him to frequent the city's many brothels. But you know, his music doesn't belong in a court or a palace. He wrote for the people. You don't need to have an intimate knowledge of Beethoven's repertoire to enjoy his music, to feel the majesty, the greatness of his talent. You ask Miss Adler if you don't believe me. She is quite the fan. Holmes turned to his right to speak to me and looked surprised to discover Christine Moon sat beside him. He glanced over to me, raising an eyebrow. I shrugged, grinning back at him. You have quite an admirer, I whispered, gesturing towards Christine Moon. Holmes nodded and understood. He smiled at me, making polite small talk with Christine Moon, which appeared to satisfy her curiosity, before rejoining his conversation with Watson and Arturo. Sophia and I were speaking of the engagement and the forthcoming wedding. Have you set a date yet? I quizzed. We have yet to agree on a date, said Sophia. We were thinking late July. I asked my sister Ornella to be a bridesmaid, but unfortunately she couldn't be here with us this evening. She is about to appear on stage in Warsaw. Oh, that's a shame. I have fond memories of your sister from when we shared rooms together. Here's an essential question for you, Neen, said Sophia, a solemn expression appearing on her lovely face. Would you do me the honor of being my matron of honor? Yes, I shrieked. I would be delighted. Let me know the time and the place, and I promise I will be there to help with all the arrangements. I leaned over to kiss Sophia on the cheek, overcome with emotion. Neen, you'll never guess who I received a letter from this morning. Well, who? Katia Liaz. I stared at Sophia. The lovely Katia from Ukraine. Sophia nodded. Katia read about the engagement in the newspapers. She wished to convey her congratulations at the earliest opportunity. She's engaged herself to the renowned surgeon Lars Fieldstein. Well, her fiancé would hardly be a hospital porter, would he? I quipped. Sophie and I remembered Katia with fondness. The three of us shared a house when we were first-year students. Shared may have been a mild exaggeration. Katia was rarely at home. A year older than Sophia and me, Katia was tall, slim, and elegant with fantastic waist-length wavy red hair, alabaster skin, and ice-blue eyes. I recalled Katia always had long, tapering pink fingernails and beautiful couture clothes. She attracted an army of ardent admirers, but would only consider dinner invitations from the most affluent men, the start of every new dalliance recorded in ecstatic detail in her diary. Katia became engaged twice during that first year. On each occasion, she ended the relationship, returned the gold rings, but retained the stones and used the services of a jeweler. As naive first-year students, Sophia and I were fascinated by the outrageous stories she told us. We would sit up together until the small hours, arguing about life and love, getting a little tipsy on wine and Russian vodka. Our eyes would brighten with wonder as Katya offered her earthy and emancipated views on sex and relationships, speaking to us in her thick East European accent. Great. Now I need to do a thick European accent. Oh boy. I will do my best. Darlings, always remember it is just... See, I'm going straight to the one I did before. It is just as easy to love a rich man as a poor man. I would never consider having an orgasm, darling, not until the man has paid for dinner. That would be entirely out of the question. Same accent. Oh dear, I seem to be locked. Always remember, if men wish to sample the milk, they must first purchase the cow. Oh, I've heard that before, it's so funny. Her advice to two impressionable girls was to drink copious amounts of champagne, always smile, and never tire of desire. In her opinion, sexual abandonment was a wonderfully liberating experience. Katya lived a luxurious lifestyle, a bon vivant partial to expensive face creams, French restaurants, fine linen, and spa hotels. If she were about to order her last meal, Katya would ask for a wine list. Well, Nin, what about your friend Mr. Holmes? What is the likelihood of a little romance between the two of you? In a particularly naughty mood, Sophia couldn't help but tease me. Do you not find him rather handsome? He's nice and tall, and he's got great legs. That's if you don't mind an intensive, introspective aura, and those eyes that appear to look straight through you. Sophia stared knowingly at me, whispering confidentially. Neen, you know what they say about raw-boned men? They make the best lovers. Luckily for you, he's still a brooding bachelor. Well, I wondered who had the bright idea to seat me next to Mr. Holmes. I should have known it was you. The subtlety was never your strong point. I'm sorry to disappoint you, Sophia, but embarking on a relationship with a narcissist, megalomaniac is hardly priority. Admittedly, he is handsome, but I doubt Mr. Holmes is capable of loving anyone as much as he loves himself. Please forgive me, said Sophia. I have been insensitive, especially after everything you've endured with Godfrey. But you cannot retreat to your fantasy world just because fate has dealt you a terrible hand. There are plenty of interesting people out there in the world. You must be brave enough to look. Sophia, you of all people are aware that I don't actively seek notoriety or the limelight. I met Godfrey after a friend persuaded me to go to a dinner party, and we all know how that ended. No, not for me. I am through with romance. Sophia took me by the hand. One day, you will see him, the one right for you. And when the time comes, you will know. If you say so. I rolled my eyes. I love your optimism. I glanced across at Holmes, who had just turned round to speak to Christine. His all-seeing, penetrating eyes noticed me staring back at him. Our eyes fixed on each other. I quickly turned my head away, resuming my conversation with Sophia. Christine was feeling unwell. She complained to Sophia and me that her mouth felt dry. I passed her a glass of water from the table. Is there anything else I can get for you? I asked. I noticed Christine's cheeks were flushed and blood red, her pupils dilated. The wine is very bitter. Her voice trailed off. Watson and Holmes were still deep in conversation and banter with Arturo. Finally, they turned around after being disturbed by my cry as Christine collapsed. Watson immediately dashed over to her side. He took her pulse and checked her temperature and said both were high. He checked her heartbeat, which he said was racing rapidly. We all looked on anxiously as Holmes removed a napkin from the table and picked up Christine Moon's glass, carefully pouring the contents into an empty one before pressing the glass to his nose. As an expert on poisons, Holmes said he was shocked to discover the unmistakable floral scent. The telltale signs were all there. He pointed to the sediment of the shiny blackberries on the plant mashed up into a pulp. Holmes glanced over to Watson. Atropa belladonna has poisoned this woman. Holmes quickly took control of the situation and ordered the hotel manager to lock all the windows and doors. No one was allowed to leave or enter the hotel except Roberto, the kitchen porter, whom Holmes sent out to fetch the police and summon the ambulance. Meanwhile, Dr. Watson picked up a dessert spoon from the dining table and pressed it firmly into the back of Christine Moon's mouth. She began to retch. The hotel manager, Luco Russo, brought in a bowl and a jug of warm water from the kitchen. Holmes passed Watson a salt cellar and a mustard pot from the dining table. Watson emptied the contents into the warm water, stirred the concoction with the spoon, and then slowly began to pour the solution down Christine Moon's throat, attempting to neutralize and dilute the toxins. Christine Moon retched again. Despite the less than appetizing scenes, Dr. Watson was doing everything in his power to save her life. The horse-drawn ambulance arrived to take Christine Moon to the Santa Maria Nuevo Hospital, accompanied by her son Robert as well as Sophia. My friend told me the doctors carried out a thorough examination and immediately started treatment. We later discovered that the toxology report confirmed belladonna had indeed poisoned Christine Moon. However, thanks to the swift actions of Dr. Watson and Sherlock Holmes, Christine Moon was expected to fully recover. Meanwhile, Inspectors Romano and the Polizia arrived at the hotel. Romano, a medium-sized, thick-set Italian, shook hands with Holmes before casting his dark eyes over the crime scene. Holmes later told me that he and Romano interviewed the remaining dinner guests before entering the kitchen to question the staff. Nicole had informed him that the sommelier, Peter Blythe, had absconded. Moreover, she gave an accurate physical description of Blythe, which matched that of William Palmer. Holmes quietly took me aside. I was shocked to see him so grim-faced. He explained that he expected Blythe had posed incognito and was in all probability the fugitive William Palmer. Miss Adler, you must follow my instructions exactly. Your life may well depend upon your compliance. It gives me no pleasure to inform you that you were, in fact, the intended victim of the poisoner, and I fear that you are now in mortal danger. Me? Yes, it would appear so. I have spoken to Inspector Romano, and he would like to post a man in uniform outside your bedroom door. As a precaution, you understand. If you feel it's entirely necessary, and it will set your mind at rest, then I will, of course, comply. You obviously have friends in very high places, Mr. Holmes, to go to all this trouble for me. The inspector and I go way back, said Holmes. Romano owes me a favor. I must go now. I have much to do. I will come back to see you later. We're going to search Blythe's house. Romano's constables are checking the ports and the railway stations as we speak. No stone will be left unturned, I assure you. Later that evening, Holmes returned to my hotel, where he found me still a little shaken from my ordeal. He explained how he, Romano, and Dr. Watson had searched Blythe's lodgings, but to no avail as he was long gone. Romano's constables in the meantime were still busy checking the ports and stations. Holmes ordered brandy, which he handed to me, speaking to me gently in soothing tones. I'm afraid traveling is going to be out of the question for now, Miss Adler. If your intention was to return to the States, then I would not recommend that either. Certainly not at the moment in time. Why ever not, Mr. Holmes? Because you will not be safe until Palmer is apprehended. Embarking on either journey would be risky. Although we have alerted all the ports, the peril would still be far too great. I must make it crystal clear to you that you are in danger. To pretend otherwise would indeed be a cruel deception. I appreciate your candor, Mr. Holmes. Thank you. I would like to offer you my services, at least until Palmer is apprehended. If you refuse, I cannot predict what will happen, but if you allow it, I can give you my undivided attention. I'm asking you to trust me, Miss Adler. Will you? Thank you, Mr. Holmes, I said, staring at him pointedly. But why would you do that? Why put yourself at risk? Because I can, Miss Adler. Because I consider it a moral imperative. If you treat me as a confidant, you will find that I will justify that trust. My goodness. Books and Bounty, thank you so much for the follow. Welcome in. Hi there. I like the name, by the way. Very cool. Books and Bounty. From whereth do you hail? Hello and thanks. My pleasure. It's good to see you in here. Are you a streamer of books yourself? Just out of curiosity? Something tells me that you are. Based on your name, that is. I'm going to take a quick sip of tea while we learn about Books and Bounty. I'm Baltimore MD. I have a regular Tuesday night show with special guests where I curate bookish things, people, and events. I'm also a tea drinker, chai to be exact. Well, that's fantastic. I've been to Baltimore many times for work. And you have a Tuesday night show with special guests. That's very cool. Well, here, let me drop you a follow. I'd very much like to see what that's all about. I am drinking, and pretty much only drink, black tea with milk and sugar. Because I am from the UK originally. And that's basically what I do. I stream BTS of editing and content creation, and readathons and giveaways. Thanks so much for asking. Of course. Thank you for being here. We are currently reading a book. Not that. I can't type. There we go. A book by a wonderful person from the UK named KD. She's actually here listening, although I'm hoping she fell asleep. It's great to find other readers here on Book Twitch. Yes, absolutely. I do like finding new folks on the bookish side of Twitch. Well, thank you for being here. I'm going to keep reading. Feel free to relax and maybe have some tea yourself. If you treat me as a confidant, you will find that I will justify that trust. I am hardly a wholehearted admirer of womankind. I have found most women I have come across to be inscrutable, but I can see that you are on quite a different level to any other woman before you. Still awake and thoroughly enjoying your wonderful reading? Oh, well, fantastic. Sometimes I put people to sleep because they just zone out, listen, and then doze off. But I'm glad you're still here. Thank you, Mr. Holmes. I feel happier now you have offered to represent me. If you are certain it would not be too much of an imposition, then yes, it would be a privilege to accept your services. Hopefully it won't be too long before this man is apprehended. Will Dr. Watson be joining us? Holmes shook his head. I'm afraid not. Watson is traveling back to London tomorrow. Unfortunately, his locum is due to go on annual leave shortly, and Watson has several urgent cases to attend at his surgery. However, he has very kindly agreed to lend me his revolver. Let me assure you I will do everything in my power to bring Palmer to justice. Your anxiety will soon, I hope, be alleviated. Thank you, Mr. Holmes. My father would be more than happy to pay your fee and any expenses we may incur. Then you may write to your father. First, to advise him that you are in safe hands, and secondly, that he may be at liberty to defray any expenses at a time to suit. Then, suppose you let me have his address. I would like to write him to myself to put his mind at rest. I removed a notepad from my handbag and scribbled down my father's address, which I passed to Holmes. He said he was in awe of my tenacity and bravery. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was the end of Chapter 10. Fantastic. I resemble that mark. I have fallen asleep to a soothing voice. Stop, Mom's mama. Stop. But thank you. Well, that was quite the twist in the story. There we were enjoying engaging conversation, having a nice dinner, sipping on some wine, some champagne, probably a lot of wine. And then all of a sudden, someone tries to poison Miss Adler. Indeed. But now, she is with the one and only Sherlock Holmes. I had wondered, though, at what point the two of them would become more entwined as to help their relationship, blossom. And why not it be a case of someone's trying to kill you? That's a great way for the two of them to really connect. KD, I want to give you credit for your really great way of introducing side conversations between the characters. I mean, it genuinely felt like I was sitting at a dinner table of sorts with a group of people and just enjoying the conversation that they were having with each other. It was explicit. It was realistic. It felt like you were actually there. So, kudos. Props to you. That was great. Well done. All right. Well, we don't have time for another chapter because there's only 7 minutes left of the stream. So what I will do is I will begin to find someone for us to raid. But fear not. We will be back on Thursday, because that'll be in a few days. And we'll continue with our book here. Shocking, good job, Holmes is on the case. Read on, all will be revealed. I'm sure it will. People say they feel like a fly in the wall embroiled in the conversations. Thank you. It is definitely evident. Good night, Kay. It was a pleasure having you here, listening in. Can't wait for the next thrilling episode. Me too. Me too. That's the annoying part of my stream. I have to wait. I don't pick up the book and read it. I set it down. I have a little spot right here. It's kind of almost out of sight, out of mind kind of thing. Just a touch. Yes, it's a thing. It's true. Good night, Katie. I hope you have a lovely sleep. It was a pleasure having you here, as always. Okay. Well, funnily enough, it looks like Books and Bounty is actually live right now. Doing a readathon of sorts. So why don't we go say hi? We made a new friend. Might as well go raid our new friend. If you would like to copy the raid message, please do so. Let me just make sure I spell this correctly, because I sometimes suck at typing. Ha. All right, I got it. Thank you for being here. Love reading to you. Loved spending time with you and hanging out. Please join me on Thursday as we continue. But until then, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and have a wonderful night.